Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and in this video, I'm going to go through the top 5 upvoted questions from inside of our PDS forum for this week. So every week I will do from just like our specific discussion forum space, the top 5 questions here. I do another 5 just specifically inside of the school, but and we have an upvoting system. So students come in, they put good questions up, other students upvote them who have like similar ideas. And because I think these are going to be the questions that a lot of people want answers to, we create content video related specifically about these things. So really exciting stuff. We also added a 4th live webinar for this month. So we're doing 4 live webinars every single week where literally I lead people through bonus content twice a week and then just open live Q&A twice weekly so that there's time for people's personal stuff to really get answered. And our courses for this month are number 1, the science of how to connect with other people and basically overcoming and transforming loneliness, really engaging the subconscious mind in that process. And number 2, conflict communication in terms of scripting. So basically a course all about communication, not necessarily just conflict, but how a dismissive avoidant should ask for their needs to be met from an anxious partner, how an anxious partner should ask for their needs to be met from a dismissive partner. Like literally a huge ongoing array of different situations that we're modeling out so people can see them firsthand, and steps and body language and everything to really bring into place, and ways to engage your subconscious if you're struggling with communication barriers or fears. So super excited about that. We're still doing a sale. The coupon code is with you, all one word. You can enter it by the link that I'll post on the actual video and like a little eye thing you can click on, or in the description box below. So the first question I have is from, we'll call it Jay. Okay, and Jay's question is, should I talk to my partner about attachment styles? Let me just see if there's any more to this. Yes. So it says, my FA girlfriend just broke up with me and I'm working on myself while doing no contact. When I read about our attachment styles and dynamic, they are so spot on. It is unbelievable how accurate Thais is in describing our dynamic. Thank you for sharing. This gives me hope that we can work things out together. I know about our attachment styles and I'm doing the work. Thais' videos, now PDS courses, but my FA has no clue, and I believe if she knew, it would be so helpful for her and us. As we were breaking up, she was really torn and expressed regret, such as, what is wrong with me? And why am I closing down to you? Okay. What is a safe way and healthy way to bring up attachment styles with her? Okay, so this is a great question. Here's exactly what I would say. There are very specific attachment styles who will respond in different ways to what you share or tell about them. If you are in a position where you're breaking up with a fearful avoidant, often fearful avoidants, especially if they're expressing things like, what is wrong with me? Why am I closing down to you? If they're expressing those things, it's actually a great thing to share. I would still recommend doing no contact for a certain period of time. But when you do, this is a great thing to introduce and a great way of reaching out. So I would say something like, hey, I was thinking about you. This has been helping me so much to learn about. Here are some free resources, videos. You can share things just on the YouTube channel, and see what comes up for you. And usually fearful avoidants respond extremely well to hearing things, because they often want understanding. They like human behavior. They often like to grow. They're often very focused. And so sometimes they really thrive off of getting those answers. And usually they take things pretty okay if you say, hey, this helped me. I think this might be of interest to you, because you're not saying you need this. You're saying, hey, I'm doing this. And it's not sort of highlighting this is a you problem. It's saying oh, this is that I'm learning and I like to share. And most fearful avoidants are pretty big sharers. So that will sort of resonate with them a lot of the time. Now, if we pair this next to a dismissive avoidant, often dismissive avoidants, if you say something like this, will automatically feel like the core wound is triggered, that something's wrong with me. So often we'll see a lot of resistance with a dismissive avoidant partner, hey, you should learn about this. They'll right away, it's very tough for them not to personalize, quite honestly. But in context, something to hold that next to is that it's very wonderful to lead by example and be like, hey, I'm learning about this and I learned this about myself. And the more facts and statistics and tangible things that they can sink their teeth into, the better. Anxious, preoccupied, you can go directly. You can say, you should learn about this, because oftentimes anxious feel through that the almost opposite of a dismissive avoidant. They often feel seen, heard, like you care for them, like you're seeing them, thinking of them. And usually they're like, oh, wow, this person's trying to help me and see me. And that's something that they often really enjoy and appreciate. So you know, the different styles do respond differently. And then the only other thing I will say to Jay here is please make sure, and I just use first letters of people's names, but just make sure that you, when you're doing no contact, have like something really important when there is the potential conversation about reconciliation, that you have your boundaries, your list of things, that you're not, doing this in a way that's taking yourself out of consideration, because the ultimate like main focus of healing, especially anxious preoccupied attachment style, is learning to take yourself into consideration as you make decisions, as you go through all of these processes. So I hope this makes a lot of sense. It's a great question. So the next question I have is how to equalize when my highest need is love and connection. And there's a cute little picture here. That's so nice. So I'm assuming that must be you and a loved one, which is really sweet. So this is T's. We're going to just call this person T. So T says, I'm doing the conflict course and I realize that with my highest need of love and connection, good for you, T. I see you've done the personality needs course as well. There's already a perceived imbalance in my romantic relationship. Good for you. I hear because my partner has a different highest need. I put a lot of energy into the partnership. However, my partner has a highest need for significance. They are likely to prioritize work to the detriment of all other areas of life, even forgetting to eat. This creates a dynamic where it feels like I'm the one who cares more and invests more in the relationship, and it makes us both uncomfortable. I can feel confused and hurt when I'm willing to give more, and then he feels guilty about not being as invested as I am. Will it always feel like I'm the one who loves the most, or is there a way to balance these needs? It's an excellent question. So we talk a lot in the personality needs course about how our needs also impact our relationships. And one of the really big things is that like we all have a hierarchy of personality needs, which are basically these strategies we use to get our 6 basic human needs met. And so T's talking here more about your 6 basic human needs. But if one person has love and connection, another person has significance, and then you're in a relationship, we give and receive love through those needs. So there's 3 different things I want to cover that come to mind. And I don't read these questions ahead of time. I like to sort of free flow. So the first thing that I thought of when I heard this is you can imagine that like we give and receive love through the method of our 5 love languages, like Dr. Gary Chapman talks about, but through the filtering system to a certain degree of our needs. So an example could be if let's say myself, I have this actually was like a real life experience. Before I understood a lot about like needs and did a lot of research and developed the whole personality needs idea, from like a conglomeration of different people's research I was discovering, what I recognized is that I was at a point in time, I was giving personal growth books, tickets to workshops, tickets to event, like all these different things to all these people around me at like Christmas and at holidays, because personal growth was such an important need for myself. And so I was loving through that need, sort of projecting that onto others. Like, oh, you have to read this book. Oh my gosh, I bought you this ticket to events. And I remember there were a couple times where I bought like more expensive tickets to events for people, or, bought books that I was like so excited we're going to help people. And like some people wouldn't go to the workshop and I'd be like, what? Like, what do you mean? Or like, oh, a year later, I'm still bringing up that book. And they're like, yeah, I'll get to it. I've wanted to read it, but then nobody reads it. And then soon after I learned about our needs and how we actually love through our needs, right? Because if this has been so beautiful for me, then I want to share what's been beautiful for me. But if somebody has a totally different need system, let's say they have a higher need for security than growth, even the idea of like personal growth and dig into yourself is going to push back on that need for security. And so then it's going to feel like, ooh, I don't want to do that. Why are you forcing something on me that I don't want? And so it was really interesting how we like love through that filter of our need system as well. And of course, that has a major impact on our romantic relationships. And so what you can do is the first thing that comes to mind for me here is to ask him to make you significant in the relationship. Because if significance is something that really relates to him, use words so that you're speaking in that language. So it's very easy for him to understand that, say, hey, like it's important for me to feel significant in the relationship. And here's some ways I can feel significant. And sometimes when we just relate things through the filtering system or like perceptual filter of somebody else's needs, that can be extremely beneficial for helping somebody learn and understand what you're seeking and looking for in the relationship. So that's one thing. Another thing is when we have a highest need of love and connection, if you imagine that your need system are like these buckets of the subconscious mind, what you can think of is like your bucket is bigger than his in that area. So his is going to get filled faster. His is going to, take less energy to fill, right? And the need there when the bucket is empty, it's not going to feel as empty if it's a much smaller bucket, right? So the idea is that if that's your highest need, we actually owe it to ourselves as human beings to not make one person responsible for filling that bucket, because that's where we can become really imbalanced, really confused, quite unhealthy. Like even when you share about him, it sounds like work is his major source of significance. And so if that's what's happening, then he's not even eating. Like he obviously is like creating a dynamic of imbalance because he's making one thing responsible for his bucket. And it's from that space that we really draw into like addictive type of behaviors. Workaholism, if work is the one source of significance. Love addiction, if the relationship is the one source of love and connection. And so we're trying to break out of that mentality, and we're trying to actually create balance and harmony by deriving the way that we meet our needs in, using your conscious mind, like consciously, intentionally doing this in all these different of your 7 areas of life. So love and connection in your career, like have a couple strong bonds in the workplace, love and connection from friends, family, romantic relationships, quite dispersed and balanced, love and connection from all the different places that are like meaningful to you in your life out of all those 7 areas. So like physical health, like have friends at the gym, financial, maybe do workshops with people where you've got like a community setting where you're learning about how to invest your money and manage your finances. Like you really want to look at all 7 areas of life and go, spiritual, is there a church that I go to? Is there a meditation center I go to? Is there, do I have friends who are interested in similar things? Whatever it is, try to have something that's like showing up in all the 7 areas. And this is going to be something that's very beneficial and will make a big difference. And then number 3 would be to start giving your partner their need for significance. So for example, going back on number 2 a little bit, we hear that like workaholism or work is his big source of significance. But the moment the subconscious mind realizes and gets programmed in through repetition over time that it can derive its needs from other places, it suddenly seeks those things out too. So the more validation you can give your partner, make them feel special, make them feel really like complimented, important, wanted, seen, understood, ask them about their needs, meet their needs, these sorts of things, the more you do it. And I know you're probably loving so much because it sounds like you're really prioritizing the relationship, but maybe you're not giving words of affirmation and acts of service as much. And those tend to be really important. And gifts, I mean, I bet you're doing I bet you're doing gifts and acts of service to a certain degree, just judging by like some of the things you said in here about the dynamic. But the more you can like make this person feel wanted and special and important, and through validation, through compliments, through like recognizing them, acknowledging them, appreciating them, the more you get that, the more you're going to see that person start coming to you for that. There might be like a little intermediary period where you are giving that and they don't see you as the source of that for a while. It has to be programmed into the subconscious mind through repetition over time, but you will hit a tipping point where suddenly that person comes to you for that as well. So excellent question. I hope that was a helpful answer. Okay, the next one I have here is how to heal childhood wounds and I'm not a priority limiting belief by Elle. I had a pretty neglectful childhood, textbook narcissist dad and trapped mom. I'm now realizing that because I always did what was expected of me in order to be safe, great job. I can just tell you guys are like getting the cause and effect really well. So just a big compliment to you guys recognizing your beliefs and your needs and these huge components. I didn't develop a sense of self. 100%. This is very common from this dynamic because often if there's like a narcissistic parent, it's like we go into hypervigilance, fight or flight mode. I have to do whatever's expected to be safe. And you can get into a space where it's like, you're so busy focusing outside of you that you don't learn to have a sense of self developed around you. Like, who am I? There's not a whole lot of time for self-reflection and playfulness and desires and these sorts of things. And on top of that, what we know and what we talk about a lot around this is that it's very common that you are positively reinforced for releasing your boundaries, for not having boundaries and not having that strong sense of self where your boundaries are respected, and you're really negatively reinforced, punished or whatnot for upholding boundaries. And so that whole dynamic obviously creates this, okay, in order to stay safe, I have to let go of my boundaries. So anyways, I know Elle is very much getting that. So in general, I don't have good boundaries. I'm not very assertive in my relationships. I tend to prioritize the needs of my partner and bend over backwards when it's not returned. I internalize my emotions until I explode and get into an argument. I desperately want to be a priority in my boyfriend's life, but I also like my alone time, perhaps something related to being scared of being myself with him. Very much fearful avoidant. I feel like I don't know who I am and I don't value myself. Definitely fearful avoidant, leading anxious. But how do I even begin to know who I am? I feel like it's something everyone developed, except due to my extremely authoritarian father and having to comply. The drama was consuming and there wasn't time for our kids. Okay, for us kids. What is your top advice? Excellent awareness, first and foremost. My exact advice is this. Go through and learn what your boundaries are. If there's a structure for anybody inside of the school watching this, or anybody who wants to join the school in the future, if there's a structure for, like, you're struggling with self-identity after a long-term breakup, you're struggling with self-identity because there was a narcissistic figure in your life who was very much around you a lot. If you're struggling with self-identity just because you're going through a life transition, having a midlife crisis. Some people seriously have quarter life crises, and quarter life crises, but like in their 20s, like, what am I doing? I went to school for this. Oh my gosh, it's not what I want. And go through these sorts of things. The best thing you can do is start with the personality needs course. Like, all about you and your needs and learning what your needs are. And it's how they show up at the subconscious level. It's a specific set of questions to extract your needs at the subconscious level. So start with that. I recommend for everybody watching this just on YouTube, if you're not sure what your needs are, we have free literature on the school that just a list of your needs. They're not your personality needs in the questions, but they're going to be such a great, valuable director towards that. And you can also just look at Tony Robbins' 6 basic human needs, which are like our basic needs that our personality needs stem from. And these are love and connection, significance, growth, contribution, certainty, and novelty. And just see, like, what's the hierarchy of order here that matters to me. And you can also take some time and you can go, okay, on that tertiary needs list that's free in the school, what needs are really important to me in here? Like, what are the moment-to-moment needs that I have? That's the first step of even getting to boundaries. Before boundaries, I need to know my needs on a regular basis, because they're sort of the extension or like foundation of who I am. Okay, so maybe your needs are something like even your personality needs are something like personal growth, emotional connection with people, community, or family, right? Comfort, security. Like, you can think of just whatever those things are that are really governing you. Okay. And from that, then you'll start to have this like idea of who you are. From that, you then take the boundaries course and you learn about your different boundaries, the types of boundary violations when people do things to you, like yell, right? Or when they don't do things, like return your belongings that they borrowed, right? So we have different types of boundary violations. We have different types of boundaries in the 7 areas of life. Get really clear about what your boundaries are in each of the 7 areas of your life. And a way to do that is to write out the 7 areas of life and then ask yourself, what am I feeling? When do I feel bad as if somebody's violated a boundary? And sometimes it takes like sitting and going, okay, in my career, oh my gosh, that other day when my coworker did X, Y, and Z. Okay, and why did that feel like a boundary was crossed? What was the boundary? And a great way of finding this out is to ask yourself, what happened? These 2 questions. What happened that made me feel uncomfortable? And what did I need to happen instead? And that is your boundary. Step 3 is to then communicate that. So these are good ways of finding those things, and you can reflect on all those different areas. Okay. And then something really powerful to do is like go through and just think of as well other times boundaries were crossed. Like, do a self-reflection and look for, okay, in this past 6 months, list out the core people in your life and ask yourself, when did I start getting frustrated and feeling upset as if my boundaries were violated or crossed? And again, what did I need to happen instead? How would I communicate that? And just the practice of doing that across all those areas will be extremely beneficial. And then a great follow-up course to do is the Mindset Mastery and Life Mapping course, which then helps you map out your life and create a vision and a future and a plan, and has like a reverse engineering process to like help you get that plan on, working and evolving and actioning. And it's a great thing to dive into. So I highly recommend doing some of that work. It'll really help you to like work through all of those components. And then I'm not a priority limiting beliefs. Of course, that's going to be ingrained in your subconscious mind. So do the reprogramming work around that, why you are a priority in your thinking, and find the pieces of evidence to help you equilibrate. And then on top of that, do 1 or 2 daily actions that help you show in relationship to yourself that you are a priority to you. Okay? Really powerful stuff to do. So the next question I have, these are great questions, you guys. So the next question I have is from Cami. And Cami says, how to combat the freeze response when taken by surprise. So I notice when somebody speaks to me unexpectedly, or if I randomly bump into somebody, they strike up a conversation, I often have what I believe is a freeze response, and I don't know what to say and my mind goes blank. I might awkwardly say hi, etc., but not relaxed enough to have a proper, enjoyable conversation. And then I go in my head what to say or what I should have said instead. Is this because of a freeze response? And how do I combat it? Okay, beautiful question. So here's exactly what I want you to do. And this is what everybody can do who's experiencing this, because I think this is something quite common for people, and was obviously upvoted a lot. So here's what I would do. I would ask yourself all the thoughts that you have when you bump into somebody and somebody strikes up a conversation. Like and if you can't think of any thoughts because you feel frozen, even though when you're in a freeze response, you're actually still thinking, but it's just very autopiloted thinking. And you feel the emotions of it much more than you're like in touch with the thoughts. What I want you to do is write out, even if you can't find the thoughts, go, what am I afraid of going wrong when I freeze? Because like you have to recognize any behavioral response first has to be preceded by beliefs or thought patterns activated, followed by emotions that then trigger a behavior, because neuroscience has proven every single decision we make is based on emotions. And we know like you have to have a stored perception at the belief level or thoughts coming out of that that are triggering you to feel a certain way. You don't, like if I bumped into Bob on the street and I didn't freeze, well, there's different programming I have about what it means to bump into somebody on the street that allows me to feel safe and comfortable, where somebody else has a different set of belief programs or thoughts about bumping into somebody on the street and what that means. So what I want you to do, Kay, is to sit and write out like, okay, what are all my fears about bumping into somebody? And what subconscious needs is my brain trying to get met by freezing, okay? And from that, what I want you to do is start working to question those thoughts. So you might have thoughts that say, oh, when I'm caught off guard, I am not fun, I'm not interesting, and these are all the things you're afraid of. And this is what creates the freeze response in the first place, is these beliefs you have about yourself in specifically unexpected social interactions. So write all those beliefs out, try to poke holes and question them, and then do some kind of daily repetition activity where you're going, okay, why I am good enough in social interactions, why it is safe to communicate to people without being caught off guard, why, whatever those thoughts are, work to equilibrate them on a daily basis and try to like focus on all the reasons why the opposite is true. And by doing that repeatedly, you're retraining your subconscious mind to learn that, oh, I am safe, I am okay. And then what you can also do is look for the needs your brain is trying to get met by freezing. What is that usually? If it's a trauma response, it's usually your brain is trying to get safe. And so you want to really work on the I am unsafe in social interactions belief as well. And then just to add a third piece of really helpful advice, do something every day, just once a day, that's small, where you force yourself into like a version of that situation. So maybe you just call a friend without thinking or without planning what you're going to say or without having anything to say. Maybe you go up and just start speaking to a coworker. Like you just start doing things that are a little outside of your comfort zone. And when you're finished them, let yourself know that wasn't so bad. I'm completely safe. And it's a bit of exposure work where you expose yourself to something, you try to consciously elicit a new response, and doing that repeatedly, just a step outside of your comfort zone in increments, will help to retrain your brain as well to start feeling safe and normal in those situations. So another excellent question. So the next question I have is scripts for holding space while voicing needs. And this is from Elle. So Elle says, hi, Thais. I'd so appreciate a video on the common clashes that surface between specific attachment styles throughout the 6 stages of the relationship, and how, if the PDS student in the relationship was showing up as secure, they could respond. You modeled this really well in AAs and strengthening sense of self. Oh, wow. On 6/19 webinar at 1:21:29, when you answered E's question with a script on how she can communicate her need for commitment while also holding space for her DA partner. Okay, so the good news about this is that I have a course coming out really soon with all of this stuff, and it's specifically about, it actually doesn't have the 6 stages, but I haven't filmed yet. I've just written it, so I can add that for sure. Throughout the 6 stages, how somebody could respond. Yeah, going through, talking about boundaries, talking about when your needs aren't met with the FADA, AAFA, DAAA, all these different dynamics. So I guess, honestly, to go through that all right now would be its own video of like half an hour. So I'm not going to go through it in this video specifically, but it will be in a course, and I'll specifically add the 6 stages into the course for challenges that occur in the 6 stages. Because our earlier courses already go through all of that, like the how to reprogram and how to show up in those different stages. So I will absolutely add that. And I love that you shared that. And I love that people upvoted it. That's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing the feedback and for timestamping that as well. Okay, so the last question I'll go through is from E. And E says, hey, Thais, love your content. I'm FA. How can you tell you just need to work on yourself and take time alone versus running from relationship problems? The best way I would say this, it's a great question. I would say, if you feel like you're having a huge block in showing up in your relationships, or if you're in a space where your relationships literally are making you feel worse than they're making you feel good, then it's time to maybe leave that relationship. And what I always recommend to everybody to do when you're starting this process is pick a deadline for the relationship you're in. It could be the relationship to your uncle, it could be the relationship to your parents, to your sibling, to your child, to whoever, your romantic partner, and just say, okay, this is how long I'm going to just work really hard on this relationship, setting boundaries, communicating needs, doing so consistently and seeing those needs through, expressing more vulnerably, being more present and clear about what the other person's needs are. Setting boundaries, all these really important dynamics of healthy relating. And if you're in a position where you say, okay, my deadline is 3 months, I'm going to work really hard for 3 months, and then you don't see the needle moving with that person in the relationship, you know that it's time to leave that relationship specifically. So that would be like the absolute go-to, and that's how you can walk away guilt and regret free. Now, obviously, if the dynamic is toxic, if somebody's abusive or something like that, leave immediately. But if you're just having problems and you're just like arguing and not really resolving things, or you just don't feel seen and heard and like your needs are met, pick a deadline relative to the time of the relationship, like 3 months for a year-long relationship. Or, and this is about you answering, not me, because there aren't specific timelines. It's literally relative to your investment of a relationship, because one person can be you can be in a relationship for a year, seeing the person every day and, thinking about living together, or you already jumped into something fast and you're living together, or, all kinds of different dynamics. Or you can be seeing each other for a month-long or a year-long distance and feeling a little disconnected for the last 6 months. And because of COVID, you've only really been seeing them in person once a month for 6 months. So it's like 6 times, right? Like, obviously that can vary. So pick like about the investment of the relationship you have. Are you in a 20-year marriage and you still have young kids? Or are you in a 20-year marriage and your kids have left the home and you're basically roommates? Like, get clear on what investment you have. And then from that space, pick a deadline accordingly for how long you're going to work on really showing up, doing everything you can. And then at least your worst case scenario is the needle didn't move, but you grew like crazy because you really put all of the work to the test. And you practiced and you understood yourself and you showed up differently and you regulated and you had like the ultimate training grounds from which to then go spring into your healing as the breakup takes place. And then when you feel ready again, you've got all that time and energy already invested into growing yourself. So it helps to prepare you for future relationships. So I hope this has been very helpful. These were wonderful questions. I so appreciate everybody watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and thank you again. I will see you in the next video.